Happy Thursday to you guys. We're going to hop into some social studies and we're going to be focusing on the colonies. And today is my last day talking about the New England colonies. Um, we'll venture on to the middle colonies and the southern colonies the weeks to come. So we're going to come back to them because we're going to have to eventually compare and contrast how life was in the different regions of the colonies. So today is my last focus day on the New England colonies, and then we'll bump into the middle colonies next week. So just to review, yesterday we were talking about the New England colonies, and we know that they're located more north. So they're like Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. These are some of our New England colonies. And I hope you guys got to watch that video from Flocabulary. In the song, he said that the soil was really rocky and rough, and it made it hard for them to grow food. So that's something we need to keep in mind. So again, this area, they didn't make their money by farming. They were able to produce some plants, but not enough to make money off of it. Not enough for you to say, this is how we're going to make money. We're going to grow corn, and we're going to grow cotton, and we're going to grow this, that, and the other. Their climate and their soil did not allow for them to have that be their main way to make money. Now we're going to see later on, the southern colonies, they have the type of soil that you need where they could make their economy based on growing things. So this is going to be very important later on when we see how the people made their money. So yesterday we learned that the New England colonies made a lot of their money by chopping down trees, and they could use those trees to make furniture, to build homes, to build ships. They became professionals at building ships, and they could send these things that they made out of the wood back over to Great Britain, who was like, woohoo, we're rich, look at us, getting all these cool resources from this new land. We're going to be rich. We're going to take what they did and we're going to sell it and we're going to make so much money. And then people living in Great Britain were thinking, oh, look at these people. They moved over to this new land and they're successfully doing things like chopping down trees, building ships, fishing, had a really great fishing economy. Oh, and these people, they're making money by trading and getting fur. And so this is going to encourage people to say, I think I want to go and move there because there's a lot of potential in getting a job and making some type of money. So it's going to encourage a lot of people to want to start moving, which is great for Great Britain because that's more people moving to the new land. That's more people building homes and just really building up your country when you're spread out all over the world and making money for your country. So those are some things we talked about with New England. We also talked about how they went whale hunting. Again, chopping down the trees, using those forests up in the New England colonies to produce these items, okay? So, and we also briefly talked about how they had a religious group, and that's what we're going to focus on today. I'm going to post a video below this one. Please, please, please check that out because that video is going to explain it way, way better than I can. It really is. It's going to entertain you. You're going to like it, and it's going to give you a good example of what the religious groups that we're about to learn about, what they were like. Okay, so we're focusing on what ideas, beliefs, and institutions developed to the colonial Americas. So we're specifically looking at the New England colonies, and we're looking at a group. They're called the Pilgrims versus the Puritans. This is what your video is going to focus on today. These were groups of people who came over and settled in New England. And the Puritans, it's a religious group. They call their religious group the Puritans. It's kind of like if you were like, oh, I identify as, for my religion, a Christian, or I identify as a Muslim. These are different types of religious groups. So how you identify yourself based on your religion. And I also just want to take a side note and say that, um, you know, what they believe, that's their beliefs. So, um, they have their own way of thinking, they had their own ideas, and they really wanted to come over because they wanted to be able to believe what they wanted to, practice their religion freely. That means without a government telling them, hey, you can't practice that religion, you're not allowed to think that way, you're not allowed to worship that way. So when I say religious freedom, I mean being able to call yourself whatever religious group you want, worship however you want without the government interfering with your beliefs. And that's even big today, guys. So this is something that really encouraged this group of Puritans to say, you know what, let's move from Great Britain, let's cross the Atlantic Ocean, let's settle in this new land. And in this new land, Great Britain was really hands off because they were on the other side of the ocean. So these Puritans, they were able to elect people to be in charge. But keep in mind, Great Britain is the one who is ultimately in charge. They have the final say of like what taxes and some of your rules. But these local leaders, because you didn't have things like internet and the phone, they had a lot of control. And so many of the people who moved over here, they said, "Hey, let's go. We can practice our religion freely. We won't have anybody interfering, and we can finally live somewhere where we are in a community with other people who believe just like us, and we are living by our religion." So that sounds great. But there were some drawbacks because imagine if you moved over here from Great Britain and you were not a Puritan. It was not your religious belief. So this created conflict, which means that word means like where people were having problems because the Puritans, they came over to practice their religion and not have anyone tell them what to do. But people who also moved over there and wanted the same thing for themselves, they got a lot of grief from the Puritans if they lived in one of those towns that was mainly ran by the Puritans. So much so that some of them got kicked out of the town, or they're like, "Bye, we're leaving. We can't follow your rules. We don't believe your rules." So they literally like packed up and went somewhere else. So that's what the video you're going to see today. It's going to focus on some of their rules. So for example, the Puritans, this is one of their rules. I was looking it up. It says all work, play, brewing, and travel were forbidden on a Sunday, which was called the Sabbath. There was even a debate on whether a man could be rescued from a well on that day. Folks were punished for picking strawberries, playing cards, or sailing. So imagine on a Sunday if you got stuck in a well. That's where you can put your little bucket down and get water. If you fell into that deep well, and people were like, you know what? It's Sunday. We have to, part of our rules, we're not allowed to help you. It's going to have to wait till Monday. So as you can see that, if you don't believe in that, you could see why that might be a problem for you to live somewhere where they make you follow these rules. Imagine if you weren't a Puritan and you're like, well, I'm picking strawberries. And the people who were in charge of that town said, well, we're Puritans and our rules say that you're not allowed to pick strawberries, so you're going to be punished. And your punishment might be going to jail. Like, that's crazy. So you can see why some people were not very happy with your Puritans because they didn't want to live somewhere where the rules were for one type of religion. So let's look at some other things. Okay, we're going to read this passage on the Puritans. It says, many people in New England were English Puritans. The Puritans came over to the New World in search of religious freedom. They believed the Church of England was too powerful and they wanted to change it, but when they tried, they were outcasts. That means they were kind of put out. So they sailed across the Atlantic Ocean in hopes of building a new society of their own. In 1630, about 800 Puritans left England. 1 year later, 200 Puritans didn't survive that first terrible winter. Many died from illness, disease, or harsh weather. Another 200 Puritans returned to England to seek safety back home. With only half their population left, the Puritans needed more people to keep their colony in working order. However, they didn't want to just anyone. They wanted people who believed in the same things they did. They believed the Bible is God's word. They also valued hard work. Most people worked from sunrise until sunset. They held town meetings to discuss business, town issues, and religion. They enforced strict punishments on people who didn't follow their rules or simply banned them from their settlement. I do want to point out this is what a lot of people they have a hard time with the Puritan belief because the Puritans came over for religious freedom, but they didn't offer that to people who lived there. So they wanted to freely worship, but if you lived in their town, you could freely worship what they believed in, not what you believed in. So this cost a lot of people, like I said, to move out. It says Roger Williams and Anne Hutchins were two Puritans who shared their different views about religion and were forced to leave the colony. Many people followed Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson to establish new colonies. These became the colonies of Rhode Island and Connecticut. So that's again how more colonies were formed because they wanted to break away and not have to be a part of that religion. Over the next several years, thousands of Puritans arrived in Massachusetts Bay Colony. They spread inland and settled up and down the Atlantic coast. By 1679, many of them moved north and started the colony of New Hampshire. As the colonies grew, so did the need for them to use. All right, so again, that was just a quick review, or not review, that was a quick lesson on the Puritan religion. When we go back to our main focus, says, what ideas, beliefs, and institutions developed the colonial America? So, the Puritans, their beliefs and their institution, which is their religious group, it helped shape the way the towns were run, the laws that were made. It was really important for the development of earlier colonial America. Many of their their rules were based off the Bible and the rules of the religion. So when we think about the New England colonies and what type of beliefs they had, we can say that many of the people believed in the Puritan way. That was the main religious group living in that area. So like I said, next week we will focus on middle colonies, and I'll introduce you to how they built their economy and how the different religious groups that lived there as well. Please check out the video I post below. It's going to help you understand more about the Puritans. See you guys later.